You're listening to the School Growth Strategies podcast, brought to you by Hubly. In this show, John O'Landon draws on his vast experience and expertise to deliver actionable advice to private school administrators who are ready to take the next steps toward running a more efficient and sustainable private school business. I'm your host, Ryan Cowden, and this week we're joined once again by John O'Landon. In this episode of the School Growth Strategies podcast, Jono and I discuss ways you can increase enrollment at your private school. One of the biggest differences between public school and private school is compulsory attendance. Students are required to go to school, but they are not required to attend a private school. This means educators and administrators who work in the private school sector need to have a constant eye out for new students and families to bring into their school community. It's also no secret that the ways we communicate are different today than they were 20 and even 10 years ago. While there are many new ways to get people's attention, there is also much more noise, and it can be hard to get through to the people you're trying to reach. What are the best ways to find and connect with potential new families that might be interested in your school? On today's episode, you'll hear how to set goals for this process. By going through the SMART goal process, you can set meaningful goals that are attainable and contained within well-defined boundaries. Next, we'll cover the importance of hosting an open house. Getting parents on campus is a great way to get curious school shoppers to commit to the next step in your process. Then we'll talk about some ways you can market your school on social media. There are a lot of free ways that social media can allow you to engage and retain your current families. After that, we'll discuss the role of pay-per-click ads. Paid ads on Google and Facebook are good ways to grow your audience and find people who are interested in your school. Finally, we'll talk about how to develop a healthy mindset for this process. By staying patient and focusing on a few key practices, you will be better prepared for the modern ways of marketing your school to new families. If you are looking for some solid tactics to boost enrollment at your school, then this is one episode you won't want to miss. There's a lot of actionable advice in this episode, so grab something to write with because you're going to want to take notes. As always, I'll be back on the other side to wrap up any loose ends. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with John O'Landon. All right, John, welcome back. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here.
Great. We're looking at ways to increase private school enrollment today. A very interesting topic. But before we dive into the 6 steps, I actually wanted to talk about this idea of setting a SMART goal for your school. So I was wondering if you could just kind of talk to us about what a SMART goal is and how that relates to this topic.
Yeah, sure. So, the concept of a SMART goal is, it's an acronym. So SMART. So S is specific. M is measurable. A is it's what is it? I think it's actionable.
Yeah.
R is what's R? You have to remind me.
R, I have it right here actually. Realistic.
Right, realistic. Yeah, and then T is timely as well.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure it's time bound. So the idea is, acronyms are fun because all of these things are common sense, so to speak. Sure. But it helps you just make sure that when you're in a goal, when you're setting goals, you're just using this as a framework, to make sure that you're setting goals that are, going to be actually attainable, and that's the idea, right? So obviously, being realistic is really important, but also, being time bound is also really. It's really important to, even if it's arbitrary, it's important to put some boundaries around a timeline, because then it gives you something to compare. From one goal to the next, and to know how you're succeeding. And then you might, obviously goals can be shifting all the time, but it allows you to know that, if you need to make an adjustment,
Sure.
and the more you do this, the better you get at it as well. And so where this comes into play with managing a school is there's a lot of different KPIs, key performance indicators, that schools and really any other business live or die by, so to speak.
Okay.
So as an example, when we're talking about measurable and realistic and specific, what I like to suggest to schools is let's break down the different KPIs of your business. So, how many people are learning about the school? How many people are inquiring at the school? How many people are from that point of inquiring enrolling at the school? And how many people are? How many of those families have more than one children? What's your child per family ratio?
Mm.
And how many programs per child are happening? So all of these things play a big impact. And what's your profit margin? On a per student basis. So these metrics are, you would call them other things in other businesses, but whether you're a shoe store or Coca-Cola or a school, um, they're all the same. So this is like, sort of business planning 101. So it's traffic, opt-in, conversions, uh, you know, revenue per sale, customers, sales per customer, profit margin. These are all things that, again, all businesses live or die by. So when you're trying to when you're looking at how do you grow the school, how do you make it a healthier business, whether you're for profit or not, or a nonprofit, you still have a goal of generating revenue with a net margin to even for-profit schools generally are reinvesting
Yeah.
the lion's share of their profit margin back into the school.
Yeah.
Right. Um, so the way you do that in a smart way is to approach it incrementally. Trying to, because if you can improve each one of those metrics from one year to the next just by 10% each, so let's say you've got your retention rate. So let's say your retention rate is 70%. Well, next year, spend a month trying to figure out how to get it to 77%, not 100%.
Sure.
Right? But how do you get it to 77%? Right? Make that your goal, and then next year after that, add another 10%. Right?
Yeah.
So it's because people running schools don't have a lot of margin in their day. They don't have a lot of time. So what I try to sort of suggest for schools is take this as a, there's generally, there's 12 months in the year, and people that run private schools usually work all 12 of those months. You might take a little break here and there, but there's basically 7 or 8 different KPIs that you're looking at. So take like take one KPI per month and try to improve it by 10%, and then move to the next one. So
Okay. Cool.
the first one is traffic. So let's try to get more people, learning about the school. Let's try to increase that by 10%. It does help, obviously, to know in the first place how many people are learning about your school. So you need to have a marketing system set up that's informing you to that, right? So that's why, even though there's many different KPIs in the business of running a school, I always suggest that schools start with a marketing system that because that's sort of the front half, of the business. Unfortunately, marketing is something that is usually thought of last. Usually, when I ask a school how do they come up with their marketing budget, it's just whatever is kind of hopefully going to be left over after we figure out how to spend everything else.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunately backwards, right? Businesses should actually, plan to spend and know what they should have to spend to reach their revenue goals. So there should be a plan in place to activate that budget before, right?
Sure.
So it's
Yeah.
so you should always start with the marketing system.
Okay.
You should have your marketing strategy known, understood. It should give you the ability to grow your enrollment, grow the business in a predictable way, and then once that's there, work on the rest of the business.
Sure.
The rest of the other business performance indicators.
Yeah. Okay.
That's so approaching them in a smart way. Each one of them is really important, and again, trying to be incremental and take off small bites that you can actually chew,
Sure.
rather than trying to improve one of them by 100%.
Okay. Perfect. So let's kind of go through this list here. We've got kind of 6 different ways to drive growth of these private schools, and the first one you listed was just having an open house. And I was wondering what's so special about an open house. Why does that matter?
Well, open houses are really good because it allows you to it's less committal
Okay.
than a tour. So it lets parents who might not otherwise want to book a tour have an opportunity to come in and I would say really the best way uh, to get a to sort of sell a parent on the school
Sure.
is to book them for a tour where they can really come in during the day and see the magic that's going on in the school and have this kind of full body experience. And I just talk about it from my own experience when I did tours for my kids. It's
Yeah.
like it's this whole emotional thing, and I think that's when parents really make that connection with the school.
Okay.
And but I also think that so open houses aren't, I don't think, as powerful as one-on-one tours,
Hmm.
but there are a lot more efficient, and you will get parents that will enroll from the open house, and or maybe because they came to an open house, come in and do the tour, as a second step. So it can be that sort of initial step before they come in for a tour, a one-on-one tour, and
Okay.
and because it's less committal and they know they're not going to be booking your time one-on-one, it's just easier for them to make that commitment.
Right.
And so generally the strategy I usually suggest to schools is that they do this on a regular basis, and they try to set up a bit of a system that isn't so that they get used to doing it. It's not this like big uh, you know stressful thing
Hmm.
that they only do once a year. Like, so we've got customers that work with us, and they do kind of a cross between a tour and an open house. They do group tours,
Hmm.
so they don't schedule one-on-one tours,
Okay.
but every week, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. they do a group tour,
Okay.
and that's how they work. And then our marketing system makes sure that there's always parents that are coming in and scheduling for that group tour. So it's a way more efficient. It's a lot less time, and it's kind of you're getting this. I wouldn't say the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
but you're getting the value of both approaches kind of at the same time.
Okay. Now, are these open houses for the parents of the school and you're inviting new parents to come in, or are these open houses specifically for new parents to come in?
Yeah, so there's different ways of using
Okay.
using these kind of events.
Sure.
Um, so in the most purest sense regarding enrollment marketing,
Mhm.
it should be for new prospective parents to come in, but it actually is great. It's a great opportunity. Retaining parents is also a form of marketing.
Right.
Anytime you're communicating with your customers, whether they're not enrolled in prospective or they are enrolled and they've been enrolled for 3 years,
Yeah.
that's marketing. Every time you communicate with a parent, it is marketing,
Mm.
right? And that's
Yeah.
that's something I also try to educate schools on, because it's just a different it's a different part of the relationship. It's a different phase of the relationship, obviously.
Right.
So and of course, having happy parents there meeting prospective parents is that can be great.
That's powerful.
At the same time, it can you want to make sure the right parents are there. So it's good to control that environment, because every school always has that family that they probably shouldn't have enrolled,
Okay.
that they weren't really the best fit. They're not the happiest family, and they're probably going to leave, and unfortunately probably take a few families with them. Obviously, you don't want them
Yeah.
coming in to the open house and souring the pot, so to speak, for everybody else. So you got to be careful. So I don't think you should mix. You know, I don't. If you're going to mix enrolled parents with prospective parents, curate that.
Absolutely.
Invite specific parents. So what I see a lot that works really well is having some parent ambassadors.
Okay.
Parents that are the folks that put out the great testimonials and have been with the school and are obviously the sort of the parent that the school would like to clone if they could, so to speak, right?
Okay.
So you want to have those parents attending those events with the prospective parents for sure.
Great. So the second thing on your list was having an active presence on social media. And I know firsthand that there's a lot of ways to waste time on social media, even when you're
Yeah.
intending to do good. So,
Yeah.
how do you tell people to make the most of their activity on social media?
So again, the free version of social media, right, that where you're not paying to run ads. Let's say use Facebook as an example, because Facebook is Facebook and Instagram is really the platform, because Instagram is owned by Facebook, and it's kind of like one, you know, platform, so to speak. Whatever you do on your Facebook page can automatically go onto your Instagram channel and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So what I suggest is that's really ideal for retention. It's Facebook can be a great, engagement platform for keeping that community going. There's so many different values that you can get out of being active the right way on Facebook. It doesn't really offer much in the way of enrollment marketing when you're using it in that way. When you're posting things on a free Facebook page that you didn't pay for,
Okay.
it can have sort of a long tail effect where if you post something and then a parent shares it, it can have a bit of a viral effect. But to it's like you can't really track it, and it's not a strategy that you want to invest in regards to enrollment marketing. Whereas with enrollment marketing, when you're thinking about using your resources to grow your enrollment with new families, you should be sticking specifically to ads for that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the Facebook page engagement on there is not going to really deliver any value for enrollment growth.
Okay. Great. The next thing was pay-per-click ads, and I was wondering if you could just kind of explain that concept real quick and kind of how to get that off the ground.
Yeah, so that's a great sort of segue because
Yeah.
pay-per-click ads is there's a few different platforms that are best known for that. Google is the first sort of they came in and really revolutionized marketing with their search engine marketing. So you can pay Google per click on the ads that you place. The way Google works, of course, is you are choosing keywords that you want your ads to be found on. That's one of the main ways. You can also decide on certain. You can have your ads put on certain websites, but that's really not so relevant to schools. Whereas, like, just as an example, you want to be seen whenever somebody types, preschools in Toronto. I'm in Toronto, so I'll just use Toronto.
Okay.
So preschools in Toronto,
Yeah.
you want to make sure your school is there in the sponsored links, and it could be text or it could be display and things like that. So um, so that is pay per click. So when people click on it, you're getting charged some amount that's an algorithm figures out based off competition and all these other factors. So the way you think about, so that's really that's like the billboard of today, so to speak, right? So the a keyword is kind of like a street that you would drive down, right? So you're looking for streets that are busy, and you want to try to find the keywords that your market is using to search for schools like yours, assuming that they are. By the way, a lot of times people just aren't really searching in your area enough that using Google is even relevant. That's what we find a lot. So it's kind of a 50-50 thing.
Okay.
We used to actually provide Google ad services. We don't currently because we found it to be too inconsistent. So we just decided to focus on Facebook ads because generally, so that's the other main platform, and really the one that seems to be perform the best that we found with our data, performs the best for growing schools. So you can, it's essentially the same thing, except whereas whereas in Google, you are paying to be found on searches. In Facebook, you're actually paying to be seen by people that you're targeting. So Facebook knows a whole bunch of stuff about its users. It's incredible how much they know, and so that you can target people by their demographics, obviously their location, their gender, their age, their interests, their connections to things, and there's other very, very advanced targeting features in Facebook. It takes quite a lot to learn, and I really suggest only spending money on Facebook ads if you are going to work with an expert. So make sure you don't just. Please never boost a post. Whatever you do.
Oh,
I've talked to a lot of schools. They boost posts. It doesn't work. We've just seen that it's really ultimately the best way for schools to waste money, because again, it's like it takes a lot to learn how to do this. So
Yeah.
that's just an aside.
Yeah.
But Facebook ads, if done right, seem to be the best way. You get the best return on investment. You'll get the most students for the lowest cost per student.
Okay.
But it is through pay per click, basically. I mean, there's other ways to pay. You can pay by impressions, meaning how many times the ad is seen. You can pay, but there's some other options, but essentially it's in that category of pay per click.
Okay, great. So there are some other options in the list that people can look up. We'll have that linked in the show notes. We only have a couple minutes left, so I kind of thought to kind of wrap this up, we should talk about how growth can be slow and it takes time. What should administrators keep in mind as they really target this process?
So you should keep in mind that that it takes a lot of. I'll just kind of say what I said before. This is really, I mean, it's super important.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time to learn how to use these tools, and how to use these strategies. And I would think everybody I've ever talked to, whether I'm speaking at a conference or they've joined my webinar or just done demos with them. I mean, anyone running a school that's a great educator has plenty of intelligence to be a very successful marketing professional, but generally find they don't have the inclination or the interest. Like they actually love educating, and they like being in the classroom, or they like being face to face with parents, or developing programming and all of those other things that they really got into this for. So my suggestion is, developing a marketing strategy, which is the kind that a school should have, which is a system that should automate the process and should track the success of every stage in the process, and really inform you and give you a way to predict when you will have the students you need and how much you'll need to invest to get those students. That type of marketing system is really the only one a school should be trying to develop. You should stay away from like the sort of fuzzy branding stuff. It doesn't deliver results, and if it does, you don't know, because you're not tracking it, and so you just get. And so if you don't know if it's working, then why would you spend money on it continually, right? So when you can track something, then you can improve it by like 1,000% within a short amount of time. Like literally, you can take a Facebook campaign, you can launch it, and then over a month or 3 months, you can improve it by literally 1,000%. So that, at first it was generating students for $300, now it's generating students for $50. Because if you know what you're doing and you're tracking everything and you're testing every stage of the process, you could actually get it to improve the performance that much.
Wow.
So, but knowing how to do that takes it takes a team of people that have different skill sets and that have all spent thousands of hours. I mean, it's not something that somebody that's running a school or teaching, or you just don't have the time. Like the time isn't there. So I would say make sure you look for whatever you do, before you spend another dollar or another minute running your own marketing. Try to find the right team of experts that you feel you can trust, and that you believe are reputable and will do a good job, and the investment will be worth it.
Okay.
Like because otherwise the probability that you're going to waste your time and money is just far too high.
Okay, great. John, that was really helpful. We'll see you on the next episode.
All right, see you there.
Thanks. All right, folks, there you have it. That wraps up my conversation with John O'Landon. He shared a ton of valuable insights and advice today on how to boost enrollment at your private school. We also shared some tools and resources, which will all be linked up in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Please consider subscribing, sharing with a friend, or leaving us a review in your favorite podcast directory. Until next time, best of luck in all that you do, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the School Growth Strategies Podcast.